those things help them want to come back. But they come to you. Why? Because they have a challenge. And they see you and your company as the solution or possible solution to whatever that challenge may be. The second part of our definition is to do for that customer what we know they want done for them. Now, many of us grew up learning the golden rule. That's exactly what that is. Put yourselves in your customer's shoes. Do for that customer what we know they want done for them. And so that's our goal here today. Find a need and fill it, and do for the customer what we know they want done for them. That's our goal. Now, the rest of our time is, how in the world do we do that and not go nuts in the process? Customer service is hard work. Don't let anybody tell you it's an easy job. It is the most important job and a very hard job. And so how do we do that? Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard the saying that the customer is always right? Well, let me let you in a little secret. It's not true. That quote has been taken out of context for years. Now, the challenge with that is that's probably the only way you've ever heard the quote. And even more unfortunate, that's probably the only way your customer has ever heard the quote. And they probably preach that to you, don't they? But the entire quote is by Marshall Field. And he said this: right or wrong, the customer is always right. Right or wrong, the customer is always right, which means something totally different. You see, your customer could be wrong as anything, but in their mind, in their perception, they are right. A guy who perfected this was Sam Walton of Walmart. You see, Sam understood that his customers weren't always right, but he did understand that they were the king, they were the queen, they were the boss. You see, every once in a while, somebody would walk into a Walmart and say, I need this. But when Sam found out what they truly needed, what their goal was, the results they were looking for, they didn't need that at all. They needed this thing over here. Now, what happened if he gave them what they said they needed? And 6 weeks down the road, the customer discovers that it didn't work. Who are they mad at? That's right, good old Sam and good old Walmart. You see, when I'm talking about finding a need and filling that, I'm not talking about what they say their need is. I'm talking about what is the result they're hoping to achieve. What is the long-term goal that that customer has? That's their true need. And we have to discover what that true need is if we truly want to fill it. Now, in order to discover that need, that means you have to have a dialogue with that customer, which means you have to be able to connect with them. In fact, this is where customer service begins and ends. If we cannot connect with our customer, it's done. And so we have to be able to connect and to build rapport with them. Now, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here this afternoon. We're going to lean on the direction of a very wise man by the name of Dale Carnegie. Back in the 1930s, Mr. Carnegie wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a classic. It sold over 30 million. In fact, here's a little homework for you. If you've never read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, on your way home this afternoon, go by your nearest bookstore and pick you up a copy. It's a classic. We're going to just cover a very tiny little part of that book here today. In that book, he has a section of 6 steps that he says will get people to like you. Well, that's pretty much what rapport is. When we like them and they like us, we have a connection with our customer. The first thing that Mr. Carnegie says we need to do is we need to become genuinely interested in them. We need to become interested in our customer. Have you ever been talking with somebody and you know that for a fact that in their mind they're 1,000 miles away? How'd that make you feel? Probably not very good. Probably not very good at all. And so what we have to do is we have to begin to connect with them. Now, first of all, let's stop for just a second and think about why is it so important to connect with them? Well, the White House also did some research on this. They wanted to find out, where do all these customers go? Why does a customer leave an organization? Why does a customer stop shopping at their grocery store, for example? This is what they found out. They found out that 1% die. There's not a lot we can do about that. 3% move away. Well, unless you're a national or international company, there's not too much you can do about that either. 4% are fickle. They float. They go to Walmart today, they go to Kmart next week. 5% listen to their friends' advice. And let's quite be frank here. Who has more influence over your customers' decisions? You or their friends? Their friends do. Who has more expertise about what you do? Their friends or you? Of course you do. Doesn't seem quite fair, but that's where the statistics lie. 9% can buy the product and service cheaper somewhere else. Now let's focus on that one just for a second. 9%, pretty hefty margin there, but it's not as large as what people think. If you talk to people around your office, they're going to say that 95% of your customers make their decision whether to come to you or not because of price. That it's all about commodity. Well, that is not true. It's only 9%. Yes, 9% of customers do leave or choose to stay because of price, but that's a small percentage in the relationship of what we usually think it is. 10% are just complainers and whiners, and you're going to have those difficult customers. In fact, I want you to think for a moment. Raise your hand if you have a difficult customer. I can see all the hands right now going up. Let me ask you another question. How many of you have difficult people?